Rushing River Provincial Park in northwestern Ontario is an amazing place for a day canoe trip or to spend a few nights. The park is extremely easy to access. The campsites are huge and well maintained, and there are some really pretty lake travel routes that you can plan out pretty much around any length of time. My trip started at the access point at Dogtooth Lake. It was a beautiful morning in early October, and I couldn't wait to get out on the water. The route I planned was about 52 kilometers, and I was planning on tackling it in 2 nights. You could easily take your time and stretch this route out to 3 or 4 nights if you wanted to take it at a slower pace. I paddled east through Dogtooth Lake and through Gale Lake. I hit some huge slow rolling waves in the final stretch to the east end of Gale Lake as I pulled into the beach landing. Here I got my first taste of some of the most luxurious portaging I've ever done. Wide trails open up the forest to let a lot of light peek through the red pines and birch trees, scattering warm light down on the trail bed of freshly fallen autumn leaves and pine needles. It was one of those rare trips where I actually came to look forward to portaging. I got to my campsite a few hours before sunset, and I gotta tell you, this was one of the nicer sights that I've seen. It was full of red pines with a nice soft bed of pine needles blanketing the ground. Really nice views out onto the lake with enough tree cover to shelter from the wind as well. The next morning, after taking in a quick coffee and oatmeal, I continued on. After a short paddle across Gale Lake, I got onto another one of Rushing River's 5-star portage trails. I'm not kidding, every portage was like this. Well maintained, great views, easy to follow, and they were definitely one of the highlights of the trip for me. And I think Coda agrees. I paddled north through Cushog Lake. If I wasn't fighting such a heavy wind, I would have spent a lot more time here. The shoreline had lots of rocky cliffs and really interesting terrain, but it was pretty windy, so I kept paddling through north to Mirror Lake and into Hawk Lake. Hawk Lake was really cool too, more high colorful cliffs and rocky terrain around the shoreline. I went through a very long portage at the west end of Hawk Lake through to Little Dogtooth Lake. I was relieved to find that it was quiet, calm, and serene, just what I needed after a long day of canoeing and portaging. I pulled into my campsite just before sunset and took in the beauty that you can only really appreciate when you're out in nature and find places like this and have them all to yourself. The final day, I was up early and got to start my day on the perfect note. Glass calm water, blue skies, and a revived spirit. It was a straight shot back to the launch through Dogtooth Lake, west all the way through. It was really pretty and the weather was perfect, but I gotta say, personally, I preferred the south half of the loop. More lakes, more portages, and overall a lot more variety. But hey, it was a nice way to unwind on my way back to the launch before I set out on my next adventure. Rushing River is exactly what I love so much about Ontario. Less than an hour drive from my door and I can be canoeing alone in 340 hectares of wilderness, enjoying lakes, campsites, and trails. If you haven't checked out this park yet, you are in for a treat and a lot of great surprises too. It's a beautiful world we live in. Get outdoors and enjoy it.